everyone, welcome to today's video. Thanks so much for all of the love, the comments, the text messages that I got on my birth story video. I was super encouraged and happy to help anybody who had any questions. So today I'm going to share my labor and delivery prep. I'm just going to jump right in. I have my notes on what I did earlier on in the pregnancy and then a daily list that I started at exactly 37 weeks. So as you all know from my birth story, I did have a doula. She did help me with a lot of preparation, and I also took a Lamaze class, Pain-Free Birth by Karen Welton. So if you guys are interested in how I learned a lot of these techniques and ways to go deeper with the knowledge that I'm about to share, you guys should definitely take that course or something similar. And I also recommend having a doula. Sarah was amazing and shared so much valuable information. For some of these things, this is people's job to help women get prepared for labor in a way that brings outcome like my own. So there are things that I just want to be careful about the way that I share them. For example, Karen and Sarah, they're both paid for what they do, so I don't want to just go around giving their information to everybody in a free manner, if that makes sense. But there are practical things that you could do to prepare, and those are the things that I'm going to share here with you today. So in the very beginning, when I found out I was pregnant, we immediately knew that my husband needed some informing on what this whole thing was going to look like. Of course, I did as well, but I've always wanted to be a mom, so this is a subject that I was somewhat familiar with and had already done some research on. As for Joey, the whole birthing and labor process was something that was completely new to him, so we made sure that he had taken a class and read some books, and ultimately around 35 weeks, him and I went on a date and just talked about what we envisioned the birth looking like. I gave him my best case scenario for every single thing, and I remember in that conversation reiterating so many times, I don't expect this to happen. I don't expect it all to go this way. I'll be happy if one of these things happens. And in the end, almost everything, actually I can't even think of one thing that I said that didn't happen. And so I think that sharing that with Joey, it sort of helped him to understand how I envisioned his role during the whole labor and delivery, how I thought he would be able to best support me. Obviously, I didn't know what my state was going to be, if I was going to want him talking a lot, if I was going to want him quiet, things like that. But just the type of partner that I thought I would need is what I explained to him. So if you're gonna have anybody in the room, your significant other, your mother, your friend, anybody like that, I would recommend talking to them beforehand and telling them, this is my best case scenario. If everything went right in my head, this is what it would look like. And I would not get too attached to that idea. That is one thing that I kept trying to remind myself. It does help you almost stay grounded if things do go differently than you had envisioned, rather than starting to get tired faster, lose hope, get frustrated while it's all still happening. So one thing I do recommend is staying super open about this plan and the idea that it might not go anything like this and still be totally beautiful. But I do think that having Joey there and understanding the role that I envisioned for him during my contractions and during my labor was super helpful. So I do recommend you doing that. Another thing that we talked about on this date was ways that he could help me, like I mentioned, and one of those ways was helping me through the breathing. So I had done some breathing exercises and had him count me through them. It was really helpful to practice this because it took us a while to get it. Sometimes I felt like he would count too fast. Sometimes I felt like he would count too slow. Sometimes I felt like he was counting too loud. And it was just a whole thing. But anyways, we tried to get it down to a way that I felt was helpful to me and he was confident in doing. So this is something that could be practiced throughout your entire pregnancy, but I got really serious about it around 35-ish weeks. So I had 3 breathing techniques that I had practiced, and I only ended up really using 1.5, but I think that if I had practiced more on the other 2, they would have been more helpful. So let's go into those. One way that Joey knew when to count was because with every breathing exercise, no matter what stage I was in labor, I would always start with a cleansing breath. So a big deep breath, no counting, no nothing, just big deep breath. And I would do that before and after each contraction. So as I felt a contraction coming, I would do a cleansing breath, and then Joey knew, okay, she's about to have a contraction, and then he would start counting for me as soon as I finished that cleansing breath. And the way that we counted through contractions was 4 seconds in, 6 seconds out. So some people like it a little bit faster, some people like it a little bit slower. Just practice with your partner or whoever is going to be there to support you, helping you in the room. As you go through it, you'll kind of figure out what you like. Also, for me, especially being so heavily pregnant when I started doing it, I was already out of breath like all the time. So it wasn't easy having that 6 seconds out. Definitely took some practice. So Joey and I would try to do it in the morning and the night, but especially when we were out on walks or I was doing squats or things like that, that made my heart rate go up a little bit. The next breathing exercise was meant for the transition period. However, if you've watched my birth story, I did not know I was in transition, so this wasn't utilized. But if it is something that you're interested in looking up, it is the chest breathing and panting. So before, with the 4 in, 6 out, it was more stomach and deep, like core breathing. And then transition is more of a quicker chest breathing. And then delivery was deep J breathing. So I did practice this a little bit while I was pregnant, but I had a hard time figuring it out. And so I feel like I didn't utilize it to the best of its ability during the actual delivery, the pushing stage. But if it is something you're interested in, just look up J breathing, and there's quite a few videos to teach you how to do that. Okay, so now we're going to move on to around 37 weeks. I took the birth preference list that my doula had beautifully put together for us, and I gave it to my OB at my checkup appointment. Asked her to be honest with me or open with me if there was anything that she did not feel comfortable with, couldn't comply with, or just was unsure about for me personally. And that was really helpful because I think there was 2 things that she said I cannot do due to hospital policy. And no, I think there was one thing where she was like, we definitely need to change this because of hospital policy, and I just don't, that's not how I practice. And then there was another thing that she recommended something different. I don't remember fully, but needless to say, this was super helpful because 1, it gave her an idea of the birth that I was thinking about, and 2, it helped me better prepare myself for what the environment was going to look like in the hospital. I didn't want to show up on the day and have this beautiful plan and then her be like, we can't do this, we can't do that, and kind of throw me off a little bit. So this was super helpful. Her and I talked about the changes that needed to be made or that should be made. And then after my appointment, I talked to my doula and she edited the birth preference list. And she also gave me some more like recommendations of if I didn't want to change it as much or if I wanted a different alternative, things like that. But the things that my doctor had said, I was really okay with. They weren't my non-negotiables. I do want to mention though that when I found this OB and decided I wanted her to be my OB, I did have a background of her and the way that she practiced and the things that she did, and I knew for the most part that we would align on a lot of things. So I would say in the early stages, if you have this idea of how you want the labor to be, to read your OB's reviews, to kind of just, even at the first early appointments, get a feel for your OB if they kind of think the same way you think, agree with things that you agree with. You don't want to get to the end of pregnancy and realize, oh, this OB does not practice in the way that I want my birth to happen, and then have to find a new OB at the very end, which does happen, but obviously would not recommend. So this is obviously something that you want to find out sooner. But at that 37 weeks, that's when I shared the actual birth preference list with her and we went over it together. Then when I got home from that appointment, I officially started my daily, I don't even know what to call it, prep list. So I will share with you now everything that I did every single day, starting at 37 weeks to the time that my water broke. And when I say I did these things every single day, I did do them every single day. So I am not joking about that. Some of these I did start earlier than 37 weeks, but I had just a to-do list on my phone so that I wouldn't forget them. So for example, my prenatals and magnesium, I was already taking that the whole pregnancy, but that is on this list. And then I added Primrose vitamin to that list at 37 weeks. Every single night with my dinner, I would have 12 to 16 ounce of iced raspberry leaf tea. Oops. Baby sound machine just turned on. Okay. I might have used like a special pregnancy raspberry leaf tea. I'm not sure. I made a reel about it if you want to see the exact brand, but I don't think that really matters. It was just raspberry leaf tea. Obviously, not too much sugar. I did not add anything to it. I literally just brewed the tea. And then, actually, sometimes I think I would add a little bit of lemonade. But that was it. Every night, I would also have 6 dates for dessert. So I've seen some videos where people like make the desserts all fancy, add chocolate or nuts or stuff like that. I am not a huge fan of dates, but I don't think they're disgusting. So I would just kind of bear it and eat 6 right then and there and just over it and done. Then at night I would do 30 deep squats and then I would do yoga. So I usually liked to do yoga in the morning, but every once in a while I did do it at night at the end of the day, and I would just search pregnancy yoga videos or 3rd trimester yoga videos. I can leave a few in the description of the ones that I gravitated to the most, but as for the moves, I feel like a lot of them are very similar or often the same, just in different sequences. So I don't know if those videos in particular did anything, but the actual stretches as a whole were what was most important. Sometimes I wouldn't even watch a video and I would just do stretches that I had seen in multiple videos. Kegels was another thing. I don't remember. I think I had looked up something about how often you should do them. Anyways, I would just do it whenever I remembered. Like if I was just sitting down and I just remembered like, oh, Kegels, I would just do them. Or if I was going to the bathroom and I just like, this is another thing. Sometimes I would just be going to the bathroom and then I would stop myself and hold it, and I don't know if that's good for you. Hopefully that doesn't like can't cause a bladder infection, but yeah, I would do that. So maybe don't quote me on that, maybe look that up or ask your doctor if that's like actually helpful in any way. But anyways, whenever I would think of it, I would just do that. Every single day I walk at least 1 mile, usually 2 miles. I did do curb walking, but I don't really feel like it helped. I don't think it dropped her. I think she just dropped when she was ready to drop. And it wasn't even that early on. I feel like she dropped and then a few days later is when my water broke. So anything can happen. Don't get discouraged if you feel like your baby hasn't dropped yet, because I was definitely out there curb walking for some of those weeks and nothing, and I just stopped because I was over that, and then a while later she dropped. So I don't know if it really works or not, but my personal opinion, don't be discouraged if it's not working, because baby will drop when they're ready and it could be days later that baby's here. So I had a few people ask me what I think contributed the most to not tearing, and I do think that this was one factor. Obviously I can't know, and obviously I can't say for sure what's going to work for you, but I feel as though this was one factor in that, and the other factor I'll get into next. So every single night I would do one of the following. I would either do a primrose deposit, meaning I would have the primrose vitamin gel and I would poke a hole in it with a sterile safety pin and I would put it in as a deposit. Now, was I recommended by a doctor to do this? No. Do I feel as though you should ask your doctor if you feel inclined? Yes. I wouldn't do this just out of blind following. I don't want to be responsible for anything that could happen. So if you're unsure about whether or not you want to do that or you should do that, ask your doctor. Always take doctor's advice. I'm not a doctor. I'm just telling you what I did, okay? I had a lot of people ask me and recommend to me to do perinatal massages. I think I did one during this time, maybe two. So take with that what you will. I don't know if that has scientific backing about not tearing or tearing less, but I didn't really do them. So the next one is TMI, sex. Just being honest here, you guys wanted the truth, here it is. So one of those three things I would do every single night, starting 37 weeks up until my water broke. And I believe that step in my process was one of the most helpful in not tearing. The next thing that I think was most helpful in not tearing was the position that I actually gave birth in, which I described in the birth story video. If you guys want to hear or see more about that, I think I put a clip in as well. But this is another area of the Lamaze class and the doula that really, I mean, you could look up like labor positions, but they helped me really understand them. With my doula, we practiced them, I think I was around 38 weeks when she came over and we looked at some options, and Joey also was there, so he could kind of help navigate and see where he would be most helpful depending on the position I was in, things like that. I did do a lot of research into this position and found it to be the most comfortable for me, and also from what I had found had the most success with not tearing, which was one of my biggest fears. So immediately, obviously, it drew me to that position. All right, now I'm gonna share some tools that I use to cope with the contractions and then to cope with the delivery. So as far as contractions go, I do believe I showed some of this in maybe my reels of what I was taking to the hospital, but I had acupuncture rings, heating pad, fan, cold rags, birthing comb, low lights, a worship playlist. I did try to use the Christian hypnobirthing app in the early stages of my labor, but I didn't buy the subscription. I just did the free trial, so then it ran out. But I feel like it was helpful when I did have it. So maybe if you want to try it out and see if you like it when you are practicing your breathing exercises in the weeks leading up, then decide afterwards if it is something that you want to purchase for the actual labor and delivery process. If you have a tub accessible, water will be your best friend. If you do not, like I mentioned in my birth story, you could use a shower as well. And then staying nourished, you will need lots of energy. So around 39 weeks, my husband and I went to Trader Joe's and I just grabbed all my favorite snacks. Anything that sounded like it might be good, just grabbed it. And then I had it all in one place. And if anything sounded good during the labor process, him or my doula would just grab it for me. I will say, as I mentioned in my video, I did have a full dinner and I don't remember snacking too much. I really honestly don't remember being super hungry. My husband and Sarah, the doula, did have to encourage me a lot to even like stay hydrated, but I always felt better after I did either have a snack or have a drink. So it was helpful to have them there reminding me. One thing that I mentioned in the story was honey stick. So honey stick is one thing that I would recommend. And then I would also recommend dried fruit. Just things that are not too hard to eat, not things that are too salty, but it's really your preference. Whatever sounds good in the moment, just eat it. So if you're thinking something might sound good, if you've had a craving throughout most of your pregnancy, just buy the thing, have the thing, just in case. Another thing is juice. So pink coconut water. Pink coconut water is super, super helpful for hydration. One of my friends actually tipped me on that and she let me have some of hers. And then I just had to told Joey, like, keep buying that until it's time. So I did have a lot of pink coconut water during labor. I also was, I think by the same friend, given a recipe for a labor juice that I did not have the time to make because I thought I still had at least a week until baby was gonna come. But I will share that recipe with you guys. It's 1/3 cup of fresh lemon juice, 1/3 cup of honey, 1/4 teaspoon of salt, 1/4 teaspoon baking soda, 2 crushed calcium magnesium tablets, and 1 quart of water, or add water till the juice gets to 1 quart. So if that is helpful for you guys, let me know. If you guys have any other specific questions about my labor prep or delivery prep, please let me know in the comments, and I can do a Q&A if there are still questions after this video. If not, I hope it's super helpful to you. I had quite a few ladies who are in the end of their pregnancy, 35, 36, 37 weeks. So I'm praying for you guys. I hope you guys have an amazing birth, and I hope that some of these tools can be helpful to you, maybe things you haven't heard of before yet. If so, give this video a thumbs up. Let me know in the comments. As for the next few videos, my husband, baby, and I are planning on doing quite a few travels in the next month, so I'm going to go ahead and vlog those. We're going to have some more vlog style videos. But as I mentioned, if you have any more questions, we could throw a Q&A in there as well. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you next time. Bye!